Morning, Abe.
Morning, Fred. I'll get your usual started.
Thanks, Abe. Well, if it isn't Charles Brixford Sr. I haven't seen you in here in a while.
Hi there, Fred. Junior here tells me he sees you in here all the time.
I'm in here nearly every day. Your son here is turning out to be a fine young man. How are you doing today, Junior?
I don't know. I was just talking with Dad about that shooting in the news last week. For some reason, that one really hit close to home. That could have happened at my school.
Yes, a tragedy for certain.
What can be done to prevent things like that from happening in the future?
Well, one school of thought is that if we tightly restrict access to guns, there will be fewer violent shooting incidents.
Well, that sounds like a good start.
But restricting them is clearly a potential infringement on individual freedom.
But people are dying. What about the lives that are being lost?
Yes, and a lot more people died to establish that freedom. What about those lives that were lost? We already established a while back that freedom can be more important than life. This seems to be a logical application of that principle.
Well then, what do you think we should do instead to reduce gun violence?
It is really about the people involved. The guns are just the tools. Guns protect our freedom just as much as they endanger it.
But limiting them seems like it could help.
It might, but it also might make the problem worse.
How could it make it worse?
How do we stop someone who has decided to go on a shooting spree?
The police show up to stop and arrest them or shoot them if necessary.
Are the police responsible for protecting people from the shooter?
Of course, that is their job.
Not according to the courts recently. A federal judge says Broward schools and the sheriff's office had no legal duty to protect students during the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. From the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, December 17, 2018. And while that is absurd in this context, of officers hiding during a shooting, police are supposed to detain people who commit crimes, not prevent them from doing so. This does serve as a good illustration of the importance of taking responsibility for your own safety and knowing how to protect yourself.
How are you supposed to protect yourself from a mass shooter?
Shoot back, of course. It really levels the playing field.
Right? What about school? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble I would be in if I brought a gun to class?
That would be a good example of when it should be the authority's responsibility to protect you. But that is the exact situation that court case was addressing. So currently the system is failing you, which is a tragedy, but not an excuse to change things further to allow it to fail everyone else as well.
So then what can be done?
Well, people need to do everything they can to take responsibility for their own safety, as you can't depend on the government to protect you. And guns are a useful tool in doing that effectively. So restricting legal access to guns doesn't seem like it would be a step in the right direction.
What about limiting the power or capability of those guns?
How do you propose we go about doing that?
Banning assault rifles would be a good start.
The first problem I see with your proposal is that assault rifles have been effectively banned since the Firearm Owners Protection Act of 1986.
What about all these shootings we hear about nearly every week?
They are committed with pistols or semi-automatic rifles. Assault rifles, by definition, have the option of fully automatic fire and are considered more dangerous than semi-automatic rifles. But registered assault rifles have only been used in 2 murders in the past 80 years, both involving police-issued weapons. Occasional other crimes have been committed with illegal assault rifles, but they disregard existing laws.
What about the ideas for an assault weapons ban that keeps getting brought up?
The issue there is, how do you define an assault weapon? That is a term that was fabricated by gun control marketing experts to elicit feelings of fear. And because assault is already illegal, wouldn't it make sense to ban assault weapons?
Well, yeah, wouldn't it?
But couldn't a knife be an assault weapon? How do we determine what qualifies under that heading? Should we ban all knives? How would you cut your steak?
Well, that seems like an apples to oranges comparison. Knives can be useful tools.
So can guns. To protect your livestock, hunt for food, or self-defense.
Well, how powerful of a gun do you need to do that?
Well, I don't think that everyone necessarily needs a bazooka, but determining where we draw that line is one of the main points of contention in that debate. What do you think is a reasonable solution?